I call to order this June 23rd, 2026 meeting of the Community Development Agency. I'm Mindy Rump, the Mayor of Blair, and I'm pleased to have joined us this evening. This is a public meeting, and you are part of the process. I encourage you to participate, ask questions, and share your thoughts, and I want you to feel comfortable, and I will do everything that I can to make sure that your voice is heard. We do have several rules to help us proceed with the meeting, and I ask that you please keep them in mind. Please turn off your cell phones. If you need to take a call, step outside the chamber. When you wish to speak, simply raise your hand, and I will call you forward to the podium. Brenda Wheeler, our city clerk, must record who you are, so please state your name, spell your last name, and state your address. We are asking that everyone practices mutual respect and hospitality towards one another this evening. I appreciate that we have an active citizenry and that you are very passionate about voicing your opinion. However, we are going to ask that decorum is maintained tonight. Please, no speaking or murmuring when someone is at the podium. We are asking that you refrain from clapping as it is disruptive to the flow of the meeting. We want you to be respectful to everyone and their time. If you are in support of a speaker, simply raise your hand and that will be sufficient. Keep your remarks brief, about 3 minutes, so that others have the opportunity to speak. And we are asking that you keep it to 3 minutes tonight and you only come to the podium one time. Please direct your remarks to either myself, City Council, or to City staff. A copy of the Open Meetings Act has been posted by both exits. And we are going to begin with the approval of the minutes from the April 28th, 2026 meeting.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes from the April 28th meeting. Please register your vote.
All council members present voting aye.
Motion is approved. Item number 3, consideration and potential recommendation for approval to the City Council via Resolution 2026-002 of a tax increment financing redevelopment plan entitled Redevelopment Plan for SJAV Tenant Redevelopment Project. Mr. Green.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor, council members, and the audience. Phil Green, City Administrator for the City of Blair. Before Michael Sands, who's the city's TIF attorney, gets up and kind of explains a little bit about this this revised plan, I wanted to just kind of lay out for all of you and for those who are listening a little bit of the ground rules more and a little bit of kind of a reminder of what's going on right now. You are not sitting as the City Council right now. You're sitting as the CDA, the Community Development Agency. And that specific statutory role is going to be different than your role will be during the council meeting that will be coming up later on tonight. These redevelopment plans by state statute go to the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission's role is to evaluate the plan and to determine solely whether it's in conformance with the comprehensive plan, which is ultimately kind of their Bible that they judge everything on, is that comprehensive plan, and whether this kind of development and the use of TIF for these kind of activities would be in conformance with that comprehensive plan. That's the recommendation the Planning Commission makes. For you as the CDA, you're going to be much more involved in the technical aspects of how TIF works, the financing of it, and whether especially it meets the ultimate criteria of that cost-benefit analysis. When it comes to whether it's a good development or not, good for the community, that's the role for the council. And ultimately, that's what the council is going to decide. What you're looking at right now is a little bit more narrow and focused. And so I just want to remind the audience of that as well. There will be the official opportunity later during the council meeting for the public hearing, and that's really the prime opportunity for the citizens to get up and comment on a TIF proposal and this redevelopment plan. If they have questions, comments about some of the technical aspects of the plan, that would be appropriate for the this CDA meeting as well. But ultimately, if they're just don't think it's good for the community, that really is more of a council decision, not a CDA decision. So again, I'd encourage you to pay close attention as Michael goes over this with the plan, especially from staff's perspective. The biggest change in this one is the details in the phasing aspect of things, and that it specifically and clearly says that when it comes to phase 2, which in this revised plan is the commercial lots, and then phase 3, which would be potentially additional multifamily housing units, that both of those two phases are absolutely contingent upon a council in the future deciding that that's what you want to do. But if you were to approve this plan tonight, ultimately it would go back, or if the council ultimately would approve it tonight, then a redevelopment contract would be written up that would deal just with phase one. And that's the only TIF that would be involved, would be the TIF dollar amounts for phase one, not for phase two, not for phase three. Those would have to be decided by a future council sometime if they decided to go forward with that. And it could be this concept that the developers are putting forward. It could be a different concept based on what the council wants to see at that point in time. So that's kind of a significant change in this plan, that it tears that phase two, phase three apart, and really just is ultimately going to present phase one to you. And then again, the cost benefit analysis is critical, and that is in Exhibit E, I think it is, and ultimately kind of lays out for you some of the benefits from a financial standpoint, the costs, and then makes the determination that this would be a positive thing from a cost benefit analysis only. Unless you have any questions for me, I will turn it over to Michael Sands, again, attorney for the city regarding TIF projects.
Hello again, Michael Sands, 1700 Farnham, special attorney for the city on TIF matters. So as Phil kind of laid out for you, the main, the project as a whole, or at least the components of it, haven't really changed with respect to what's in the plan. It's really the structure and the oversight of how it's implemented. So if you'll recall, prior, at least from a timing and sort of division of taxes perspective, it was broken up into kind of three separate areas, with the initial multifamily, the commercial element, and then the later on expansion of the multifamily. So it's still that, but what is different is really just the treatment of how those three different phases will be approached. So there's two different kinds of sort of phasing with these TIF projects. And like I just kind of said, the one we had before was really to just maximize the amount of years you could get to each segment of the project, but really treating the project as a whole. The TIF amount wasn't segmented out between the three separate phases, as we'll call them now. So that's what's changed really, is that, so the first phase is, as Phil outlined, would be that initial 110 multifamily units. So that's 522 plexes. The second phase is the commercial element there on the boundary of the project site. And then sort of the third phase would be, that potential expansion of the multifamily. But I think probably the most sort of informative or important part of the plan is contained within section H. So there's a couple of bullet points there that talk about, it lays out the phases as I just did, but the bullet points below there provide some stipulations for phase two and phase three. So, and I won't read it verbatim, but essentially what it says is that, with respect to phase two, the city's willingness to both enter into a redevelopment contract and commit those TIF dollars, so issue a TIF note or bond, is expressly contingent upon the redeveloper establishing mutually agreeable parameters and or land control rights or restrictions with respect to the permissible and or not permissible type of commercial improvements developed on such lots. And it goes on to say if that agreement can't be reached, then the city, reserves the right to not enter into a contract, and either something else would have to be presented, or the land would perhaps go to a different developer to present something else. But very basically, that's almost its own project. The reason for including all the three phases in one plan is so if the plan or the project doesn't change and you do come to these agreements, you don't have to go through 2 months of public hearings again, because you have the baseline document. But for each phase, they'll have to come back with a redevelopment contract. For the commercial one, that would be contingent upon, like I just said, having some sort of land control or land use parameters in there. What those are, I assume I will be negotiating on your behalf with the developer. I'm sure there are a lot of options. We just need to figure out sort of what route the city wants to go with that. And then for the third phase, which is the expansion of the multifamily, that contingency is really just how did the first phase do? What's the market demand currently? Because we're talking about 5-6 years down the road, maybe more. So what's the landscape look like? Is there still an appetite for more multifamily? Do we feel it's saturated? That sort of thing. And so it's really in the broad discretion of the council at that point, assuming the developers still wanted to proceed and expand, to say, well, no, we really don't want more multifamily, or this has been gangbusters, and yeah, more is needed. So you're not, by splitting them into the 3 phases and then splitting up the TIF, so the aggregate TIF amount before hasn't changed, but the amount that you're committing for each phase has changed. So for the first phase, it's $2,077,000. For the second phase, it's $689,000. And for the third, it's $1.66 million. So instead of entering into redevelopment contract and committing the aggregate amount of that, whatever that